I want us to be really ravished, captivated by the idea of a lasting, abiding Christian contentment that flows from Paul's words here in Philippians 4:10 through 13. Look with me at the text. I'm going to read along, and I'm just going to kind of unpack it as we go. Verse 10 and following, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you have renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you had been concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. You see that in verse 12? Paul says, I've learned the secret of being content. My conviction is that as you go on in your lives of ministry, of service, you're going to go all over the world. You're going to seek to establish a pattern of heart contentment in the Lord, and the world, the flesh, and the devil are going to assault it every moment. And the success of your ministry will in large part depend on how well you also can learn the secret of being content in any and every situation. Does Paul have the right to talk to us about Christian contentment? And from the beginning of his ministry, Paul suffered like no one else in church history. Listen to his credentials in 2 Corinthians 11. He says, I've worked much harder, I've been in prison more frequently, I've been flogged more severely, I've been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 5 times. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I have known hunger and thirst, and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. That was the school where Paul learned to be content, including the fact that Paul was a martyr he died for the gospel, right to the end. Verse 11, for I've actually learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. So he takes that as a teaching tool because he knows, as he says at the end of Philippians chapter 1, they are going to go through the same kind of suffering he is. They're already going through it. And he wants them to suffer well. He wants them to suffer evidently filled with joy and courage. That obvious hope that they have in Christ, it needs to shine like a light so that they can hold out the gospel, as he says. And so he wants to teach them about Christian contentment. So look how he describes it, verse 11 and 12. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content. So, 2 things. Christian contentment is a secret to be learned. Secondly, Paul had learned it. Now, what does he say? What word does he use for contentment? This is a very interesting thing. I did not realize this. The word that he uses that's translated content in all of our translations is literally self-sufficient. So what is this self-sufficiency? What does he mean? And I've pondered this for a long time. It's a difficult thing for me to understand. But I think it goes to a deep theological concept concerning God. God does not need us or anything else outside of himself to be God or to be happy. God needs nothing from the created universe at all. I actually think this is a doorway into understanding what Paul means. Effectively, what he's saying is, I was content before your money came. I'll be content while I'm eating the food that it buys, and I'll be content after the money's gone. The money actually doesn't change my level of soul satisfaction at all. And actually nothing does. Paul effectively is saying, not self-sufficient, but like God's self-sufficiency, God's sufficient. If I have God, I have everything I need. If I have Christ, I have everything I need. All the world equals nothing when it comes to your soul. That's what Paul's saying. That's what contentment is. Now, that's a revolutionary concept. Now, we ask this question, what is the secret? Well, the secret's right in the text. It's easy to miss it, but it's right there. And it's frequently taken out of context and misquoted, but it's in verse 13. I can do everything through him who strengthens me. He doesn't tell everything about it, but what he's saying is that contentment, abiding contentment, is a display of spiritual, supernatural strength. It's a strong man, a strong woman that's like this. Conversely, a continual complaining, murmuring, negative attitude is a display of weakness. Jeremiah Burroughs defines Christian contentment this way. Christian contentment is that sweet, inward, quiet, gracious frame of spirit that freely submits to and delights in God's wise and fatherly disposal in every condition. And I'll say this, if you don't embrace wholeheartedly and in a robust manner the doctrine of God's providence, which is his sovereign control over the tiniest details of life, Christian contentment will elude you. He says earlier in that same chapter, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice and the God of peace will be with you. That's discipleship, mentoring, role modeling. Friends, people are always watching. Non-Christians are watching, I said that a moment ago, but Christians, your kids are watching, your children are watching how you suffer. Your friends are watching how you walk with the Lord through these things. If you can evidently, obviously be content in any and every situation, you will have an impact beyond anything you can measure.